A wealthy CEO falls for a runaway bride hiding in his jet. She's escaping an arranged marriage. He started with the conference room, where he'd fired 3 executives last month. As he mopped, Logan wondered which of his remaining team was planning to fire him permanently. Have you ever felt so betrayed that you questioned everyone around you? Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. The billionaire stripped off his $3,000 suit and put on coveralls that smelled like industrial cleaner, because sometimes the only way to save your empire is to pretend you don't own it. Logan Pierce stared at his reflection in the bathroom mirror of his Chicago penthouse. 42 years old, worth $3 billion, and about to become the world's most expensive janitor. The razor buzzed as he shaved off his signature beard, watching 20 years of ruthless business deals disappear with each stroke. "This is insane," he muttered, but the bank statements scattered across his marble counter told a different story. Someone was stealing from him. Someone close. Someone who knew his passwords, his schedules, his weaknesses. 3 months of missing funds. $12 million gone. His accountants called it irregularities. Logan called it war. The coveralls hung loose on his frame. Navy blue with Rick stitched above the pocket in faded yellow thread. He'd bought them from a uniform shop on the south side. Paid cash. Told the clerk he was starting a new job. Technically true. At 11 p.m., Pierce Industries stood like a glass monument against the Chicago skyline. 47 floors of innovation, ambition, and apparently betrayal. Logan, Rick now, pushed through the employee entrance with a group of night shift workers. Nobody looked twice at the new guy with a nervous smile and downcast eyes. "You the replacement for Jimmy?" The supervisor, a thick-set man with stained teeth, looked Rick up and down. "Hope you work better than that lazy fool. I am Jenkins. You screw up, you're gone." "Yes, sir," Logan said, hating how easily the submissive tone came. 20 years of commanding boardrooms, and now he was nodding like a schoolboy. The basement supply room smelled like ammonia and defeat. Mops, buckets, industrial soap. The tools of invisible people doing invisible work. Logan had walked past janitors for decades without seeing them. Now he was one of them. "Your route's floors 35 through 40. Jenkins handed him a laminated card. "Executive suites. Don't touch nothing you ain't supposed to. Don't take nothing. And don't bother nobody important." Logan almost laughed. Don't bother the important people. If only Jenkins knew he was talking to the most important person in the building. The elevator ride to the 35th floor felt like descending into enemy territory. These were his floors, his offices, his secrets. But tonight, he was Rick the janitor, invisible and ignored. The executive hallway stretched before him, empty and cold. Motion sensors triggered soft lighting as he pushed his cart forward. Each step echoed against marble floors he'd chosen himself. Oil paintings worth more than most people's houses watched him from gilded frames. He started with the conference room, where he'd fired 3 executives last month. As he mopped, Logan wondered which of his remaining team was planning to fire him permanently. That's when he heard her voice. "You new here, aren't you?" Logan spun around, nearly knocking over his bucket. A woman stood in the doorway, maybe 30 years old, with kind eyes and natural hair, pulled back in a simple ponytail. Her cleaning uniform was identical to his, but somehow she made it look dignified. "I'm Anaya," she said, stepping into the room. "You look lost. Have you ever felt so betrayed that you questioned everyone around you? What would you do to uncover the truth about the people closest to you? Drop your thoughts below, because this story is about to show you how far one man will go when everything he built starts crumbling." Logan opened his mouth to speak, but Anaya was already moving toward him with a gentle smile that made his chest tight. For the first time in months, someone was looking at him like he mattered. The irony wasn't lost on him. He'd never felt more seen than when he was completely invisible. She offered him half her sandwich and a thermos of coffee. 2 things no one had given Logan Pierce in 20 years without wanting something in return. "Turkey and Swiss," Anaya said, unwrapping aluminum foil at the small break table tucked behind the supply closet. "My daughter makes them. Says they're better than cafeteria food." She pushed half toward Rick with a smile that made the harsh lighting feel warm. Logan stared at the sandwich like it might explode. When was the last time someone shared food with him? Real food, not expensive dinners with hidden agendas. His stomach growled, betraying 3 days of stress-eating protein bars. "I can't take your dinner," he said. "You can and you will." Anaya poured coffee from her thermos into a paper cup. "Nobody should work hungry. We take care of each other down here." The coffee was perfect, strong enough to fuel the midnight shift, sweet enough to remind you that someone cared about your comfort. Logan sipped it slowly, watching Anaya eat her half of the sandwich with quiet contentment. "How long you been cleaning here?" she asked. First night, Logan admitted. Truth felt dangerous, but lies felt worse sitting across from her honest face. "Thought so. You got that deer-in-headlights look. Don't worry, Jenkins is all bark. Work hard, stay quiet, and you'll be fine." She paused, studying his hands. "You ain't done this kind of work before." It wasn't a question. Logan looked down at his palms, soft, manicured, bearing the calluses of tennis rackets, not mop handles. "Lost my last job," he said carefully. "Needed something quick." Anaya nodded like she understood completely. "Economy's rough. Good people getting thrown away like trash while the rich folks get richer." She sipped her coffee, unaware she was talking to one of those rich folks. "But we survive. We adapt. That's what strong people do." Strong people. Logan had built his fortune on strength, on never showing weakness. But sitting here in borrowed coveralls, sharing a stranger's sandwich, he felt something he'd forgotten existed. Connection. Not the calculated networking of corporate events, but simple human kindness. "Tell me something," Anaya said. "What made you want to work nights?" Most people avoid this shift. Logan thought fast. Quiet. Less supervision. More time to think. "I get that. Night shift's got its own rhythm. City sleeps, we work. Like we're the guardians of everyone's dreams." She smiled at her own poetry. "Plus, I got a 10-year-old who needs her mama home in the mornings." A daughter. Logan filed that information away, surprised by how much he wanted to know more. "What's her name?" "Zoe. Smart as a whip and twice as stubborn. Gets that from me." Anaya's whole face changed when she talked about her child. Softer. Fiercer. "She's the reason I do this. Everything I do." The break room fell quiet except for the hum of vending machines. Logan found himself studying Anaya's profile as she gathered their trash. High cheekbones, full lips, a small scar above her left eyebrow that made him want to ask questions he had no right to ask. When was the last time a stranger showed you unexpected kindness? How did it change your day? Tell me in the comments, because sometimes the smallest gestures change everything. "Better get back to work," Anaya said, standing. "Jenkins does random checks after midnight." They walked back to the executive hallway together, their carts rolling in comfortable synchronization. Logan had never noticed how peaceful his building could be at night. No rushing executives, no ringing phones, no pressure. Just the soft whoosh of cleaning equipment and Anaya humming something under her breath. "Bathroom supplies are running low in the corner office," she mentioned casually. "Might want to restock before tomorrow." The corner office. Logan's office. He'd been so focused on playing janitor, he'd forgotten someone actually had to clean his personal space. The thought of Anaya seeing his private sanctuary, the family photos, the awards, the evidence of who he really was, made his pulse spike. "Which corner office?" he asked, trying to sound casual. "The big one. CEO's office. Logan Pierce." She wrinkled her nose slightly. "Rich guy who probably never worked a real day in his life. His trash is always full of takeout containers and stress medication bottles." Logan's step faltered. Stress medication? He didn't take any medications. Someone was planting evidence in his personal wastebasket. Someone with access to his office after hours. Before he could process this revelation fully, Anaya touched his arm. "You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." Her fingers were warm through his sleeve. Such a simple touch, but it sent electricity straight through him. When was the last time someone touched him with concern instead of calculation? "Just tired," he managed. They reached the elevator bank where their shifts would diverge. Anaya to the lower floors, Logan to continue his surveillance of the executive level. She pressed the down button and turned to face him. "Rick," she said softly, "whatever trouble you're running from, whatever brought you here, it's gonna be okay. Good people find their way." The elevator doors opened with a soft chime. As Anaya stepped inside, Logan wanted to tell her everything. Who he was, why he was there, how her kindness was the first genuine thing he'd experienced in months. Instead, he watched the doors close between them, carrying away the woman who'd just shown him what he'd been missing from his life. But her words echoed in the empty hallway. Good people find their way. Logan pushed his cart toward his own office, mind racing. Someone was framing him with planted evidence. Someone who knew his schedule well enough to access his private space. Someone who thought the mighty Logan Pierce would never stoop low enough to discover their game. They were about to learn how wrong they were. He was falling for the one person who treated him like a human being, while discovering that everyone else wanted to destroy him. Logan stood outside his own office door at 2 a.m., keycard trembling in his hand. 3 months of missing money, planted evidence in his trash, and now he was about to break into his own kingdom like a thief. The irony burned. The office looked different at night. Moonlight filtered through floor-to-ceiling windows, casting shadows across furniture that cost more than most people's cars. His desk, mahogany imported from Brazil, held neat stacks of contracts he'd signed without reading. Trust, the luxury of the wealthy and the weapon of the corrupt. Logan pulled on latex gloves and opened his wastebasket. Anaya was right. Prescription bottles with his name, dates showing regular pickup, antidepressants, anxiety medication, sleep aids. A perfect paper trail of a CEO losing his grip on reality. Clever, he whispered. Make him look unstable, then swoop in with a competency challenge. Corporate coup disguised as concern for his mental health. He photographed everything with a burner phone, then carefully replaced each item. Let them think their plan was working. Let them get comfortable while he gathered real evidence. A sound in the hallway made him freeze. Footsteps. Voices. Logan killed the desk lamp and crouched behind his leather chair. A $3 billion man hiding in his own office like a criminal. Told you to handle this weeks ago. Marcus Webb's voice carried through the door. His right-hand man, his trusted friend for 15 years. Logan's stomach clenched. Pierce is getting suspicious, a second voice replied. David Chun, VP of Operations. He's been asking questions about the Bermuda transfers. Then we accelerate the timeline. Board meetings Thursday. I present the mental health concerns. You back me up with the financial irregularities. By Friday, he's out. Logan's hands curled into fists. Marcus and David. 2 men he'd promoted, trusted, considered family. 2 men planning to steal everything he'd built. What about the cleaning lady? David asked. She's been asking questions about office access logs. Anaya Williams? She's nobody. Single mother, works 3 jobs, got a criminal record for insider trading 5 years back. Who's gonna believe her? Criminal record. The words hit Logan like ice water. Anaya had been convicted of insider trading. The woman who shared her sandwich, who showed him kindness, was a convicted felon? Still, David continued, she's observant. Might be safer to transfer her to today's shift, away from the executive floors. Already handled. Jenkins got his orders this morning. She's done after tonight. No. Logan's protective instincts flared before logic could stop them. They were going to fire Anaya for being observant, for doing her job too well. The only genuine person in this building, and they'd eliminate her like a business expense. The voices faded down the hallway. Logan waited 5 minutes before emerging from behind his desk, mind racing. Marcus and David were stealing from him, framing him, and now targeting Anaya. But why was she asking about access logs? What had she seen? He found her on the 38th floor, methodically cleaning conference room windows. Even at 3 a.m., she moved with purpose, taking pride in work that no one would notice or appreciate. Anaya, he called softly. She turned, face lighting up with a smile that made his chest ache. Rick, how's your first night going? Terrible. Enlightening. Life-changing. Learning a lot, he said instead. She set down her cleaning solution and really looked at him. You seem upset. What happened? Have you ever had someone fight for you when you couldn't fight for yourself? When someone saw your worth before you recognized it. Share that moment below, because sometimes protection comes from the most unexpected places. Logan wanted to tell her everything. About Marcus and David, about the stolen money, about how her kindness was the only real thing in his world of corporate lies. Instead, he asked the question burning in his chest. Why are you asking about access logs? Anaya's smile faded. Her shoulders tense, defensive. Who told you that? Jenkins mentioned it. Said you were curious about who comes and goes. She studied his face for a long moment, weighing trust against caution. Finally, she sighed. Someone's been in offices after cleaning hours. Files moved, computers left on, trash emptied when it shouldn't be. I document everything. It's how I protect myself. Protect yourself from what? From being blamed when things go missing. Her voice carried old pain, old betrayal. I've been falsely accused before. Lost everything because someone needed a scapegoat. Now I keep records of everything I do, everyone I see. The insider trading conviction. Logan's heart cracked a little more. Someone had framed her before, just like someone was framing him now. But she'd survived, adapted, learned to protect herself with documentation and vigilance. What did you see? He asked quietly. Anaya hesitated. Night security footage shows people accessing the CEO's office at weird hours. Same people who shouldn't have after-hours access. I was going to report it, but... She shrugged. Who's going to listen to the cleaning lady? I'll listen. Something in his voice made her look up sharply. For a moment, Logan thought she might see through his disguise, recognize the authority in his tone. But she just nodded. There's a pattern. Every Tuesday and Thursday night, same two men. They stay exactly 47 minutes, always leave separately. Last Tuesday, one of them forgot to turn off the desk lamp. I had to go back and shut it off so building security wouldn't notice. Marcus and David. Tuesday and Thursday were Logan's standing golf nights. Perfect alibis for their theft and sabotage. You document all this? Photos, times, everything. Learn the hard way that your word against theirs ain't worth much. She touched that small scar above her eyebrow unconsciously. But evidence speaks louder than accusations. Logan wanted to kiss her right there in the conference room. Not just for her beauty, but for her intelligence, her survival instincts, her refusal to be victimized twice. She was already building the case that would save his company and destroy his enemies. Anaya, he said carefully, what if I told you those documents could help more than you know? I'd say you're just a janitor. Rick, what do you know about corporate crime? Before he could answer, Jenkins' voice boomed down the hallway. Williams, where the hell are you? Anaya's face went pale. That's not good. He never comes up here during shift. Logan's protective fury ignited as Jenkins rounded the corner, face red with manufactured anger. There you are, Jenkins snarled. Pack your cart. You're done. What? What? Anaya's voice stayed steady, but Logan saw her hands shake. Budget cuts. Last hired, first fired. Don't make this difficult. Lie. Logan knew the real reason. Knew Marcus had ordered this to silence the only witness to their crimes. But he also knew Jenkins was about to learn what happened when someone threatened the woman Logan Pierce cared about. She's the best worker you have, Logan said, stepping closer to Anaya. His voice carried an edge that made Jenkins look up sharply. And you are. Someone who thinks firing your most observant employee right before a federal audit is a mistake you can't afford. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Jenkins' eyes narrowed, trying to place where he'd heard that tone of absolute authority before. Logan held his ground, letting a fraction of his real power seep through the janitor disguise. Federal audit? Jenkins stammered. Logan smiled, cold and sharp. Did I stutter? She carried secrets in her smile and scars on her heart. But so did he, and neither knew how dangerous their honesty would become. Jenkins backed away from Rick like he'd been slapped. The janitor's voice had shifted, carrying weight that made the supervisor's authority feel suddenly fragile. But Anaya was watching Rick with new eyes, seeing something that hadn't been there before. Nobody said nothing about no federal audit, Jenkins muttered, his earlier aggression deflating. Nobody tells you a lot of things, Logan replied, his tone casual but cutting. Maybe start asking better questions before making stupid decisions. Anaya touched Rick's arm, a warning. Getting confrontational with Jenkins was dangerous for someone who needed this job. But Logan was past caring about his cover story. Watching someone threaten Anaya had triggered something primal, something that made billion-dollar board meetings feel like child's play. Think real hard about whether you want to explain to corporate why you fired the building's most thorough cleaner right before scrutiny arrives, Logan continued. Or you can walk away and pretend this conversation never happened. Jenkins looked between them, calculation replacing bluster. Finally, he pointed a thick finger at Anaya. You got 1 week to prove you're worth keeping. Screw up once and you're gone. He stomped away, muttering about uppity employees and budget pressures. Logan watched him go, mentally adding Jenkins to his list of people who'd lost their jobs by morning. What the hell was that? Anaya whispered once they were alone. Guy was being an ass. No, Rick. That wasn't just standing up for someone. That was... She searched for words. You sounded like you could actually make trouble for him. Real trouble. Logan's pulse spiked. He'd let too much authority bleed through his disguise. But looking at Anaya's grateful, curious face, he found he didn't regret it. Maybe I know more about this place than you think, he said carefully. Like what? Before Logan could answer, Anaya's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and her face went white. Everything okay? He asked. She stared at the phone like it might bite her. My daughter's school. Emergency contact. Logan's protective instincts flared again. What kind of emergency? Says to call immediately. Anaya's hand shook as she dialed. Logan moved closer, wanting to shield her from whatever bad news was coming. Hello, this is Anaya Williams. What? Her voice cracked. No, that's impossible. She's at home with my neighbor. When? I'll be right there. She ended the call and swayed on her feet. Logan caught her elbow, steadying her. What happened? Zoe never came home from school. Mrs. Patterson thought she was with her friend Maya, but Maya's mom called an hour ago looking for her. Tears filled Anaya's eyes. My baby's been missing for 6 hours. The world tilted. Logan's mind immediately went to Marcus and David's conversation about Anaya being observant. Had they escalated from workplace harassment to targeting her child? We need to call the police, he said. Already did. They said wait 24 hours unless there's evidence of foul play. Anaya grabbed her jacket with shaking hands. I have to go look for her. I'm coming with you. She stopped. Rick, you don't even know me. This isn't your problem. Logan looked in her frightened eyes and realized it was absolutely his problem. Not because of corporate conspiracies or stolen money, but because somewhere in the last 4 hours, this woman had become important to him. Her daughter's safety mattered because Anaya mattered. What's harder, keeping your own secrets or respecting someone else's? Tell me about a time trust was complicated, because this story is about to show you how dangerous honesty can be. My shift's almost over anyway, he said. Where do we start? Anaya stared at him for a long moment, then nodded. Her school, then the park where she likes to read. They took Logan's Mercedes, which raised Anaya's eyebrows, but earned no comment. Emergency made questions seem less important than action. The leather seats felt surreal after hours in coveralls, like crossing between two different worlds. Tell me about Zoe, Logan said as they drove through empty Chicago streets. She's 10, smart as hell, too curious for her own good. Loves science fiction and hates math homework. Anaya's voice was thick with worry. She wouldn't just disappear. Something happened. Any problems at school? Bullies? Anyone who might want to scare her? Anaya shot him a sharp look. Why would you ask that? Because I think my business enemies might be targeting you through your daughter. Because I put you in danger just by caring about you. Because this is my fault. Just thinking like a parent, Logan said instead. You have kids. The question hit him unexpectedly. Logan had never wanted children. His life was mergers and acquisitions, not soccer games and bedtime stories. But sitting next to Anaya, seeing her maternal fierce love, he wondered what he'd been missing. No, he admitted, never found the right person. They reached Zoe's elementary school, a tired brick building with chain-link fencing and security cameras that probably hadn't worked in years. Logan parked under a streetlight, and they walked the perimeter calling Zoe's name. There, Anaya pointed to a small figure huddled on the playground swings. Zoe Williams was small for 10, with her mother's intelligent eyes and natural hair braided with colorful beads. She looked up as they approached, and Logan saw Anaya's stubborn chin in miniature. "Mama." Zoe's voice was small, scared. Anaya ran to her daughter, pulling her into a fierce hug. "Baby, where have you been? I was so worried." "I'm sorry, Mama. I got scared." "Scared of what?" Zoe looked over Anaya's shoulder at Logan, taking in his coveralls an uncertain face. "The man said you were in trouble. Said I had to stay quiet or something bad would happen to you." Logan's blood turned to ice. "What man, sweetheart?" He was waiting by school when classes ended. Nice suit, fancy car. He knew my name, knew Mama worked at Pierce Industries. Zoe's voice got smaller. "He showed me pictures of you cleaning offices. Said if I told anyone, you'd lose your job and we'd be homeless." Anaya pulled back to look at her daughter's face. What did this man look like? White guy, maybe 40. Brown hair, expensive watch. He smelled like cologne and cigarettes. David Chunt. Logan was going to destroy him. "Did he touch you?" Anaya's voice was deadly calm. "No, Mama. Just scared me. Said I should hide until he was sure you understood, not to ask questions about things that weren't my business." Logan knelt down to Zoe's eye level, fury barely contained. "You did the right thing hiding, Zoe. But that man lied to you. Your mama isn't in trouble, and you never have to be scared like that again." "How do you know?" Zoe asked. "Because I'm going to make sure David Chin never threatens a child again. Because I have the power to protect you both, and I'm about to use every bit of it. Because sometimes the good guys have more power than the bad guys realize," Logan said softly. As they walked back to the car, Zoe between them holding both their hands, Logan made a decision that would change everything. He was done hiding, done playing janitor while his enemies terrorized innocent children. Marcus and David wanted a war? They were about to get one. But first, he had to tell Anaya the truth about who he was, and pray that when she learned he'd been lying from the moment they met, she wouldn't take her daughter and disappear from his life forever. The hardest battles aren't fought in boardrooms. They're fought in elementary school playgrounds at midnight, when you realize the person you're falling for deserves better than deception, even if honesty might destroy the only real connection you've ever known. Some lies protect, some lies destroy, but the most dangerous lies are the ones we tell ourselves about who we can trust. Logan drove them back to Anaya's apartment in silence, his mind calculating moves and counter-moves like a chess grandmaster. But every strategy crumbled against one unavoidable truth. He was falling in love with a woman who didn't know his real name. Zoe had fallen asleep in the back seat, small face peaceful after hours of terror. Anaya kept turning to check on her, maternal protection radiating from every gesture. Logan found himself memorizing the way streetlights painted gold highlights in her hair, the way her fingers drummed nervous patterns on her thigh. "Turn left here," she said quietly, directing him into a neighborhood of 3-story walk-ups and corner stores protected by iron grates. Logan had driven through areas like this countless times, viewing them through tinted windows as economic opportunities or obstacles to development. Now, following Anaya up narrow stairs to her second-floor apartment, he saw them differently. This wasn't poverty, it was community. People who looked out for each other, who shared sandwiches and watched neighbors' children. "Mrs. Patterson must be worried sick," Anaya murmured, fishing keys from her purse. "She's watched Zoe after school for 3 years. Never lost track of her once." The apartment was small but immaculate. Second-hand furniture arranged with care, walls covered with Zoe's artwork and academic certificates. A couch that had seen better decades faced a television older than its owner. But everything was clean, organized, loved. "I'll make coffee," Anaya said, needing something to do with her shaking hands. Logan carried sleeping Zoe to her bedroom. Posters of astronauts and scientists covering walls painted cheerful yellow. He tucked her under a quilt that looked handmade, probably stitched during late nights when Anaya couldn't afford store-bought comfort. This was what he'd been missing. Not the material objects, but the love that transformed humble spaces into homes. The sacrifice that painted walls bright colors and covered them with a child's dreams. When he returned to the living room, Anaya was staring out the window at the city skyline, 2 steaming mugs forgotten on the counter. She could have been hurt, she said without turning around. Or worse. Because of some corporate game I don't even understand. Logan moved behind her, close enough to smell her shampoo. Something simple and clean that cost a fraction of the perfumes worn by women in his usual circle. His reflection joined hers in the glass, coveralls and all, and for a moment they looked like any working couple sharing fears in the quiet hours before dawn. "It's not your fault," he said. "Isn't it? I was asking questions, documenting things. Maybe I should have minded my own business." "No." The word came out harder than Logan intended. "You were doing your job, being observant, being honest. The people who threatened Zoe are the criminals here." Anaya turned to face him, studying his reflection. "There's something about you, Rick. The way you stood up to Jenkins, the way you talk about corporate crime like you understand it. The car you drive, the confidence you have even wearing janitor's clothes." Logan's pulse hammered. This was the moment. Tell her the truth and risk losing her forever, or keep lying and watch David Chun escalate his threats against her family. When was the last time someone saw your worth before you believed in it yourself? What has protecting someone you love meant risking everything you thought you needed? Share your experience below, because sometimes the biggest gambles have the highest stakes. What if I told you I know exactly who threatened Zoe? Logan said carefully, "What if I said I have the power to make sure he never comes near your family again?" I'd say you're talking like someone who's got access to things janitors don't usually have access to. Lightning flashed outside, illuminating their faces in the window's reflection. Thunder followed seconds later, and rain began pelting the glass like impatient fingers. "My name isn't Rick," Logan said quietly. Anaya went very still. "What? It's Logan. Logan Pierce." The words hung between them like a live wire. Anaya's face went through a series of emotions: confusion, disbelief, recognition, anger. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "You're him, the CEO, the man whose trash I empty every night. Yes, the billionaire who probably never worked a real day in his life." Logan winced, remembering her exact words from earlier. "That's what you said, because that's what I believed." Anaya stepped back from the window from him. "How long have you been lying to me?" "Since the moment we met." "But Anaya, everything else was real. The way I feel about you, the way you make me." "Stop." She held up a hand. "Just stop talking." Rain lashed the windows harder now, the storm outside matching the one building in Anaya's eyes. Logan watched her pace the small room, processing betrayal and revelation in equal measure. "You let me share my food with you," she said. "Tell you about my daughter, my struggles, my fears. You let me feel sorry for the poor new janitor who needed help. I never wanted your pity. Then what did you want?" She spun to face him, eyes flashing. "Entertainment? A sociology experiment? Something to tell your rich friends about the quaint poor people?" The accusation hit Logan like a physical blow. "No. God, no. Anaya, I went undercover because someone's stealing from my company. I needed to find out who, gather evidence. But then I met you, and everything changed." "Everything changed," she repeated mockingly. "How convenient. The billionaire discovers his humanity right around the time he needs something from the cleaning lady. That's not." Logan stopped himself. She had every right to her anger. He'd lied about the most fundamental thing possible: who he was. "The man who threatened Zoe," he said instead. "His name is David Chun. He's my VP of operations, and he's been embezzling money from Pierce Industries. He targeted you because you've been documenting his after-hours access to my office." Anaya stared at him. "Your office, where I've been cleaning for 3 years, never knowing the man who owned it was watching me like some kind of experiment. I wasn't watching you. I didn't even notice you until you needed me." Her voice cracked slightly. "Until my observations became useful to you." Thunder crashed overhead, and the lights flickered. In the momentary darkness, Logan saw Anaya's face illuminated by lightning. Beautiful, hurt, and completely closed off to him. "I need you to leave," she said when the lights steadied. "Anaya, please. Let me explain. There's nothing to explain. You're a billionaire who lied to get what he wanted. I'm a single mother who was stupid enough to trust someone again. She walked to the door and opened it. Thank you for helping me find Zoe. But we're done here. Logan wanted to argue, to stay and fight for something that felt more real than anything in his carefully constructed life. But looking at Anaya's determined face, he knew pushing would only make things worse. He stopped at the doorway, close enough to touch her, but not daring to try. For what it's worth, he said softly, meeting you is the most honest thing that's happened to me in 20 years. Even if I wasn't honest in return. Anaya said nothing, but Logan caught the slight tremor in her chin before she closed the door between them. Standing in the empty hallway, listening to rain pound the building and his own heart break in ways he'd never experienced, Logan made another decision that would change everything. David Chun and Marcus Webb thought they were playing against a distracted CEO, losing his grip on reality. They had no idea they'd just declared war on a man who'd found something worth fighting for, even if he'd lost her in the process of discovering what she meant to him. The real game was about to begin. The moment she kissed him in that empty hallway, Logan Pierce learned that some secrets are worth losing everything for, and some truths will cost you the person you love most. 3 days passed without contact. Logan returned to his penthouse, traded coveralls for custom suits, and prepared for corporate war. But every morning he found himself staring at security footage of the night shift, watching Anaya move through hallways where they'd shared coffee and conversation. She worked differently now, efficient, focused, but without the gentle humming that had made cleaning seem like meditation. When other workers tried to chat, she nodded politely and moved on. The warmth that had drawn Logan like gravity had vanished, replaced by professional distance. The board meetings confirmed for tomorrow. Marcus announced during their Thursday executive session. Full agenda, quarterly projections, the Jakarta expansion, and he paused dramatically. Concerns about your recent erratic behavior. Logan smiled coldly, such as missing meetings, unexplained absences, stress medication prescriptions. Several people have noticed changes in your decision-making patterns. David Chun nodded solemnly from across the conference table. We're worried about you, Logan. The pressure of running Pierce Industries has obviously taken a toll. 24 hours. That's how long Logan had to expose their conspiracy before they used his mental health as grounds for removal. But sitting in his boardroom, surrounded by expensive suits and calculated concern, all he could think about was Anaya's hurt face when she learned his real name. I appreciate everyone's concern, Logan said smoothly, but I've never been clearer about my priorities. After the meeting, Logan waited until building security confirmed David had left, then took the executive elevator to the 38th floor. He found Anaya restocking supply closets, movements precise and controlled. We need to talk, he said. She didn't look up from counting towels. I'm working. David Chun threatened your daughter. That makes this personal. Everything's personal to you, isn't it? Anaya finally faced him, eyes guarded. Your company, your problems, your solutions. What makes you think I want any part of it? Because he's not done with you. The board meeting is tomorrow. If Marcus and David succeed in removing me, they'll need to eliminate anyone who can expose their crimes. Then I'll quit, find another job, and go where? They'll follow you, Anaya. Make sure no one hires you. Turn your criminal record into a scarlet letter that follows you everywhere. Pain flashed across her face. My criminal record that your company's lawyer helped create. Logan stepped closer. What are you talking about? 5 years ago, I worked data entry for Meridian Tech. Someone was manipulating stock prices using insider information, and they needed a scapegoat. Guess who got blamed? Anaya's voice carried old bitterness. The single black mother with access to financial reports and no money for fancy lawyers. Who prosecuted the case? Your head legal counsel, James Morrison. He painted me as a desperate woman who sold information to feed her child. Jury bought it completely. Logan's world tilted. Morrison had been with Pierce Industries for 8 years, hired personally by Logan based on his aggressive prosecution record. The same man who destroyed Anaya's life was now sitting 3 floors above them, probably drafting Logan's removal papers. Wes, breaking your own rules felt like the rightest thing you've ever done. When did protecting someone mean risking everything you thought you needed? Share your story below, because sometimes love demands the ultimate gamble. Morrison works for me, Logan said quietly. I know. Another reason why this, she gestured between them, was always impossible. Logan moved closer, close enough to see flecks of gold in her brown eyes. What if I told you I could fix it? Clear your record, expose Morrison's corruption, make sure you never have to worry about false accusations again. I'd say you're trying to buy me with promises you might not be able to keep. I'm not trying to buy you. I'm trying to save you. From what? From the same people who destroyed you before. From Marcus and David and Morrison and everyone else who thinks power means never being held accountable. Anaya studied his face for a long moment. And what do you want in return? Everything. Your trust, your forgiveness, another chance to prove that what happened between us was real. Help me stop them, Logan said instead. The documentation you've been keeping, the access logs, the after-hours evidence. It's the key to exposing their entire operation. Why should I trust you? You lied about who you were. Because I'm telling you the truth now. About David threatening Zoe, about Morrison framing you, about Marcus planning to steal my company tomorrow. Logan took another step closer. And because I'm falling in love with you, even though I have no right to feel that way. The confession hung between them like a bridge neither was sure they wanted to cross. Anaya's breath caught, her carefully maintained distance wavering. Logan, I know I lied. I know I hurt you. But everything I felt, everything we shared, that was real. More real than anything in my life before I met you. Thunder rumbled outside, echoing through the building's steel and glass. The same storm that had driven them apart was building again, and Logan found himself hoping it would trap them together long enough to rebuild what his deception had broken. Show me, Anaya said suddenly. What? Your office. Your real office. If you want me to trust you, show me who you really are. Logan's pulse spiked. Taking Anaya to his private sanctuary meant crossing a line they couldn't uncross. It meant trusting her with access to his most sensitive information, his personal space, his vulnerable truth. It meant treating her as an equal instead of protecting her like a possession. Okay, he said. They took the executive elevator to the 47th floor in charged silence. Logan's key card granted access to the executive suite, automated lights revealing his corner office in all its mahogany and leather glory. Anaya walked slowly through the space she'd cleaned hundreds of times, but never truly seen. Family photos on the desk. Logan with his parents before they died. Corporate headshots tracking his rise through the business world. Awards and certificates covering one wall. Testament to 2 decades of ruthless success. This is who you are, she said, touching the Forbes magazine cover featuring Logan as CEO of the year. This is your real world. No, Logan said firmly. This is what I built. Who I am is the man who shared your sandwich and fell in love with your kindness. Anaya turned to face him, vulnerability replacing anger in her expression. I don't know how to trust you again. Then don't trust me. Trust what you feel. He moved closer, and this time she didn't step away. The space between them crackled with electricity, 3 days of separation making every breath feel charged. Logan, she whispered, tell me what you're thinking. That I should hate you. That I should walk away and never look back. But when David threatened Zoe, you looked ready to commit murder. When Jenkins tried to fire me, you stepped between us like you'd fight the world to protect me. Her voice got softer. That wasn't fake, was it? None of it was fake. Not my feelings, not my protective instincts, not the way you make me want to be better than I've ever been. Rain began pounding the floor-to-ceiling windows, turning the city lights into watercolor smears. In the dim office lighting, Anaya looked like something precious and fragile, and Logan ached to hold her. If we do this, she said, if I help you fight them, what happens after? Do you go back to your billionaire life while I go back to cleaning floors? What if I told you I don't want to go back? What if I said meeting you changed what success means to me? I'd say you're talking like a man who's never been poor, never had to choose between rent and groceries, never been invisible to people who matter. Logan cupped her face gently, thumbs brushing across her cheekbones. Then teach me. Show me what matters. Help me build something better than what I had before. She leaned into his touch, eyes closing. This is crazy. Completely. They'll destroy us both. Let them try. Anaya opened her eyes, decision made. Show me what you need me to do. Instead of answering, Logan kissed her. Soft at first, questioning, then deeper as she responded with 3 days of suppressed longing. Her arms went around his neck, pulling him closer, and Logan realized he'd never understood hunger until this moment. They broke apart, breathing hard, foreheads touching. The files are on my desk, Logan said roughly. Evidence of the embezzlement, the conspiracy, everything we need to stop them. Later, Anaya whispered, right now, I need you to show me that this is real, that I'm not just another business decision. Logan's control snapped. He lifted her onto his desk, scattering papers and awards, claiming her mouth with desperate need. She pulled at his shirt buttons, her legs wrapping around his waist, and Logan realized that power had nothing to do with boardrooms or bank accounts. Real power was this: Anaya choosing him despite his lies, trusting him despite his deception, loving him despite every reason to walk away. As thunder crashed outside and rain painted the windows, Logan Pierce learned what it meant to be completely, utterly owned by someone else's heart. They threatened her child to get to him, but they had no idea that touching her family meant declaring war on a man who owned half of Chicago. Logan woke at dawn with Anaya curled against his chest, her hair spread across his shoulder like silk. Sunlight filtered through his office windows, painting everything gold and peaceful. For a moment, he let himself pretend this was normal. Waking up with a woman he loved, planning a future that didn't involve corporate warfare. Then his phone buzzed with a text that shattered the illusion. Board meeting moved to 8 a.m. Emergency session. Don't be late. Marcus, 5:47 morgens. They had 2 hours before Marcus launched his coup, and Logan was naked in his office with a woman they tried to silence. He should feel exposed, vulnerable, caught off guard. Instead, he felt invincible. Morning, Anaya murmured against his chest, voice sleepy and content. We have a problem, Logan said, showing her the text. She sat up, instantly alert. The morning light revealed marks on her neck where he'd lost control, proof of their passion written on her skin. Logan felt a primitive satisfaction seeing his claim on her body. They're moving fast, she said, reaching for her clothes. What's the plan? You go home. Stay with Zoe. Let me handle this. Anaya paused in pulling on her shirt, fixing him with a look that could cut glass. Excuse me, this is going to get ugly. I don't want you anywhere near. Don't. Her voice carried warning. Don't you dare try to protect me by pushing me away. Not after last night. Logan sat up, running hands through his hair. Anaya, these people threaten your daughter. If they're desperate enough to move the meeting up, they might escalate other tactics too. All the more reason for me to help end this today. She finished dressing and turned to face him fully. I have evidence they need, documentation that could save your company. But more than that, I have a brain and I know how to use it. I'm not questioning your intelligence. Yes, you are. You're treating me like a victim who needs rescuing instead of a partner who can fight. Anaya moved closer, her presence commanding despite wearing yesterday's cleaning uniform. Let me ask you something, Logan. When you were Rick the janitor, did I treat you like you were helpless? No. Did I try to solve your problems for you? No, you listened. You supported me. Right. So extend me the same courtesy. Logan stared at her, understanding dawning. In his world, protection meant control, meant using power to shield people from consequences. But Anaya didn't want to be shielded. She wanted to fight alongside him. What would you do if someone threatened the person you love most? How far would you go to protect your family? Drop your thoughts below, because sometimes the biggest battles are fought by the people you least expect. You're right, he said finally. I'm sorry. Don't apologize. Just trust me to hold my own. Logan's phone rang. Marcus again, probably wondering where he was. Logan let it go to voicemail, but the sound reminded them both that time was running short. What do you need from me? Anaya asked. Access to your documentation. Photos, times, everything you've recorded about their after-hours activities. She pulled out her phone, scrolling through hundreds of images. I've got 3 months of evidence. Marcus Webb and David Chun. Sometimes James Morrison. Always the same pattern. Tuesday and Thursday nights. 47 minutes in your office. 47 minutes, Logan repeated. Specific timing suggests they're transferring files, not just planting evidence. There's more. Anaya showed him a photo of David Chin's car in the parking garage. License plate, timestamp, parked in the loading dock area. Why would a VP need loading dock access? Unless he's moving something. Physical documents, hardware, something too sensitive for digital transfer. Logan's mind raced through possibilities. Marcus and David weren't just embezzling money. They were stealing proprietary information, trade secrets, client lists. The kind of corporate espionage that could destroy Pierce Industries completely. We need to catch them in the act, he said. Tonight's Thursday. If they stick to pattern, they'll be here around 10 p.m. No, too late. The board meeting is in 90 minutes. We need evidence now. Anaya's phone buzzed with an incoming call. She glanced at the screen, and her face went pale. It's Mrs. Patterson. She only calls about Zoe. Logan watched her answer, dread building in his chest as her expression shifted from concern to panic. What do you mean she's not there? Anaya's voice cracked. I dropped her off myself last night. When? No, don't call the police yet. I'm coming. She ended the call with shaking hands. Zoe's gone again. Mrs. Patterson said 2 men in suits came to the door this morning. Said there was a family emergency and they needed to take her to me. Logan's protective fury exploded. Marcus and David. They have my daughter. Anaya's voice was deadly calm, the kind of quiet that preceded violence. They took my child to get to you. We'll get her back, Logan promised, pulling on his clothes. I swear to you, we'll get her back. Ow! You said it yourself. They're desperate. Desperate people do desperate things. Logan's phone buzzed with another text. Hope you can make it to the meeting. Family obligations can be so demanding. Bastard, Logan snarled, showing Anaya the message. She read it twice, then looked up with eyes that held murder. They think they're playing games with a cleaning lady and her kid. They have no idea what they just started. Anaya. No. She held up a hand. You want a partner? You got one. But partnership means I get to be just as ruthless as you are when someone threatens my family. Logan stared at her, seeing something new in her face. Not the nurturing woman who'd shared her sandwich or the vulnerable lover who'd trusted him with her body. This was Anaya Williams in full protective mode, and she was magnificent and terrifying. What do you want to do? He asked. I want to go to that board meeting. I want to look Marcus Webb in the eye when I tell him exactly what kind of mistake he just made. Her smile was sharp enough to cut diamond. And then I want to watch you destroy him. They took Logan's Mercedes to Pierce Industries, morning rush hour traffic giving them time to plan. Anaya called and sicked her night job, then spent the drive organizing her documentation into a devastating timeline of corporate conspiracy. Pull into the parking garage, she said as they approached the building. Loading dock level. Why? Because if David Chun has been using that area for 47-minute visits, maybe he left something behind. The loading dock was deserted except for delivery trucks and maintenance equipment. Anaya led Logan to a storage area behind the freight elevators, moving with the confidence of someone who knew every corner of the building. There, she pointed to a section of concrete wall that looked different from the rest. Fresh concrete, maybe 2 weeks old. What do you want to bet there's something buried in there? Logan stared at the wall, then at Anaya. How did you? I noticed things. It's what kept me alive when everyone wanted me gone. She touched his arm. Call building maintenance. Tell them there's a structural issue that needs immediate inspection. 20 minutes later, they watched a maintenance crew break through the fresh concrete to reveal a metal box containing USB drives, printed documents, and client files. Everything needed to steal Pierce Industries' most valuable assets. Insurance, Logan realized. Marcus and David weren't just planning to remove me from the company. They were planning to take the company's secrets with them. Anaya photographed everything before the maintenance crew could ask questions. Now we have them. but we still need to get Zoe back. Logan's phone rang. Marcus Webb, right on schedule. Logan, where are you? The board is waiting. I'll be right there, Logan said, catching Anaya's eye. Just dealing with some family business. Yes, family. Such important priorities. I do hope everything works out. The threat was clear, but Marcus had no idea he was threatening a woman who'd survived false imprisonment, single motherhood, and corporate conspiracy. He was about to learn that some families fight back. Board meeting starts now, Logan told Naya as they rode the elevator to the executive floor. You ready for this? They took my daughter, she replied, checking the documentation on her phone one more time. I was born ready. The elevator doors opened, and Logan Pierce walked in the most important board meeting of his life with the most dangerous woman he'd ever met at his side. Marcus Webb was about to discover what happened when you declared war on a man who'd found something worth fighting for, and the woman who'd taught him that real power came from having someone to protect. She learned his real name the same moment she realized her entire world was built on a lie. But the biggest shock was discovering she didn't care. The boardroom fell silent as Logan entered with Anaya at his side. 12 board members, Marcus Webb at the head of the table, David Chung with a laptop full of fabricated evidence, and James Morrison with legal documents that would strip Logan of everything he'd built. None of them had expected the cleaning lady. Gentlemen, Logan said, taking his seat at the head of the table. I believe you all know Ms. Williams. She's been documenting some interesting activities in this building. Marcus recovered first, his politician smile never wavering. Logan, this is a closed board meeting. Ms. Williams doesn't have clearance. She has my clearance, Logan interrupted. And considering she's been threatened, her daughter kidnapped, and her life put in danger because of corporate crimes committed in this building, I'd say she's earned the right to speak. Kidnapped. Board member Patricia Kane looked genuinely concerned. What's he talking about, Marcus? I'm sure there's been some misunderstanding, Marcus said smoothly. Logan's been under tremendous stress lately. Perhaps we should discuss his mental health evaluation. Let's discuss yours instead. Anaya spoke for the first time, her voice cutting through Marcus's corporate doublespeak like a blade. Specifically, your mental state when you decided threatening a 10-year-old child was an acceptable business strategy. The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. David Chen shifted uncomfortably, sweat beading on his forehead despite the air conditioning. I don't know what you're implying, Marcus said carefully. I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts. Anaya moved to the front of the room, connecting her phone to the presentation screen. For 3 months, I've been documenting after-hours access to this building, specifically unauthorized access to Mr. Pierce's private office. Could you forgive someone for lying about who they were if their feelings were real? What matters more, truth or intention? Share your thoughts below, because sometimes the biggest revelations come from the people we underestimate. Photos filled the screen. Marcus and David entering the building at 10:15 p.m. Security footage of them accessing Logan's office. Timestamps showing exactly 47 minutes of activity every Tuesday and Thursday for 12 weeks. This morning, Anaya continued. Building maintenance discovered a cache of stolen corporate documents hidden in the loading dock area, placed there by Mr. Chun. More photos appeared. The broken concrete, the metal box, USB drives containing Pierce Industries' most sensitive information. Board member Robert Zhang leaned forward. Marcus, is this true? These allegations are documented, Anaya interrupted. But that's not the best part. See, corporate espionage is federal crime. FBI takes it very seriously, especially when it involves international clients and defense contracts. James Morrison finally spoke up. You can't prove any connection between. Can I? Anaya smiled, and Logan realized she was enjoying this. Funny thing about being invisible. People say things around you they shouldn't. Like 2 VPs planning to sell proprietary information to competitors. Like a lawyer discussing how to frame an innocent woman for insider trading to create legal precedent for future prosecutions. Morrison's face went white. You're lying. Am I? Because I've got recordings. Conversations, phone calls, planning sessions. Amazing what people reveal when they think the cleaning lady doesn't matter. Logan stared at Anaya in amazement. She hadn't just been documenting their crimes. She'd been gathering evidence that could put them all in federal prison. "Where's my daughter?" Anaya asked, her voice turning deadly quiet. Marcus tried to maintain his composure. "I don't know what you're talking about." Two men in suits took her from her babysitters. David Chun cracked first. "She's safe. We didn't hurt her." "David, shut up," Marcus hissed. "No, I won't shut up." David stood up, sweat staining his expensive shirt. This was supposed to be about money, about corporate restructuring. Nobody said anything about kidnapping children. The room erupted in shocked murmurs. Patricia Kane was on her phone, probably calling building security. Robert Jong was taking notes, documenting everything for legal proceedings. "Where is she?" Logan's voice carried authority that made grown men step back. "Storage unit on North Wabash," David said, collapsing back into his chair. "Unit 247. She's fine, just scared. We were going to let her go after the meeting." Logan was already moving toward the door, but Anaya caught his arm. "Police first," she said. "Do this right. Legal and documented." "Anaya, that's your daughter." "Exactly. Which means I want these bastards prosecuted to the full extent of the law." She turned back to the board. Marcus Webb, David Chun, and James Morrison have committed corporate espionage, embezzlement, conspiracy, and kidnapping. Federal crimes that carry decades in prison. "You can't prove," Marcus started. "I can prove everything." Anaya's smile was sharp as a knife. "See, when you spend 5 years in the system because of false charges, you learn to protect yourself. Every conversation recorded, every threat documented, every crime witnessed and preserved." She turned to Logan, and he saw something magnificent in her face. Not the vulnerable woman who needed his protection, but a warrior who'd been fighting battles long before they met. "Call the FBI," she said. "Let's end this." 2 hours later, Logan stood in a storage facility watching federal agents arrest Marcus Webb, David Chun, and James Morrison. Anaya held Zoe in a fierce embrace, her daughter safe and unharmed, but understandably shaken. "Mama," Zoe whispered. "The man said you were in trouble. Said I had to stay quiet." "I know, baby, but Mama's not in trouble. The bad men are in trouble." Logan watched them together, family reunited, and felt something shift in his chest. This was what mattered. Not boardrooms or bank accounts, but the fierce love between a mother and child, the unbreakable bonds that made people fight impossible odds. "Mr. Pierce," FBI agent Sarah Martinez approached with a clipboard. "We'll need full statements from both of you. This is going to be a complex prosecution. Corporate espionage, kidnapping, conspiracy. Could take months to resolve." "Whatever you need," Logan said. "The evidence Ms. Williams provided is extraordinary. Most comprehensive corporate crime documentation I've seen in 20 years." Agent Martinez looked at Anaya with professional respect. "Have you considered a career in law enforcement?" Anaya laughed, still holding Zoe. "I just wanted to keep my job and protect my family." "You did more than that. You probably saved Pierce Industries and exposed a criminal conspiracy that could have affected thousands of jobs." As the federal agents finished their work, Logan found himself alone with Anaya and Zoe in the storage facility parking lot. The late afternoon sun painted everything golden, and for the first time in months, Logan felt like he could breathe freely. "So," Anaya said, "what happens now?" "Now you sue Pierce Industries for everything that happened to you 5 years ago. Morrison's confession will clear your record completely." And then, Logan looked at her, this incredible woman who'd saved his company and trusted him despite every reason not to. "Then we figure out what comes next. Together." Zoe looked up at Logan with curious eyes. "Are you really a billionaire?" "I am." "Cool. Can we get ice cream?" Logan laughed, the sound surprising him with its genuine joy. "We can get all the ice cream you want." As they walked toward his car, Anaya slipped her hand into his. "Logan, yeah, next time you go undercover, maybe warn me first. Next time, I'm taking you with me." "Deal." Behind them, federal agents loaded evidence boxes and arrested executives into unmarked cars. Ahead of them lay uncertainty, legal proceedings, and the complicated process of building a relationship based on truth instead of deception. But walking between the woman he loved and the child who'd accepted him with the easy trust of the innocent, Logan Pierce realized he'd never been richer in his life. The man who destroyed her life 5 years ago was sitting across the boardroom table, and this time, she wasn't running. 3 weeks after the arrests, Logan sat in his reconstructed boardroom with a new legal team, a reformed board of directors, and Anaya at his right hand. The emergency shareholders meeting had been brutal. Stock prices plummeting, client confidence shaken, federal investigations creating headlines no corporation wanted. But Pierce Industries had survived. More than survived. They were rebuilding stronger with new policies, transparent leadership, and a community outreach program headed by their newest executive consultant, Anaya Williams. The Morrison depositions are scheduled for tomorrow, Logan's new legal counsel announced. He's agreed to testify about the original Williams case in exchange for reduced federal charges. Anaya's pen stopped moving across her notepad. 5 years of carrying false conviction on her record. And tomorrow she'd finally face the man who destroyed her reputation for personal gain. "You don't have to be there," Logan said quietly after the meeting ended and they were alone. "Yes, I do." Anaya's voice was steady, but Logan saw the tension in her shoulders. "I need to look him in the eye when he admits what he did." "Anaya, I spent 5 years believing I was a criminal. 5 years apologizing for something I didn't do, accepting that I deserved less because of lies he told." She stood up, moving to the window that overlooked the city. "Tomorrow, I get my life back." Logan joined her at the window, close enough to feel her warmth but not touching. Their relationship had been careful since that night in his office. Passionate but complicated, built on attraction and shared trauma, but still finding solid ground. "What if it doesn't feel like you thought it would?" he asked. "What do you mean?" "Vindication. Justice. Sometimes getting what you thought you wanted doesn't fix what was broken." Anaya turned to study his face. "Speaking from experience, I spent 20 years building this company to prove I was worth something after my parents died. Thought success would fill the empty spaces." Logan looked out at the Chicago skyline, buildings reflecting late afternoon sun. "But it never did. Not until I met you." "Logan, I'm not saying that to pressure you. I know we're still figuring this out. But I want you to know that whatever happens tomorrow, whatever you need to process or heal from, I'm here." Anaya moved closer, her hand finding his on the windowsill. "What if I'm different after this? What if clearing my name changes who I am? Then I'll fall in love with whoever you become. Have you ever had to face someone who wronged you in the past? What did that confrontation teach you about forgiveness, justice, or moving forward? Share your experience below, because sometimes the biggest battles are with our own ghosts." The next morning, Logan drove Anaya to the federal courthouse downtown. She wore a navy blue suit he'd bought her, not as charity, but as armor for the battle ahead. In the passenger seat, she reviewed notes and evidence, preparing to face the man who'd stolen 5 years of her life. "You look like an executive," Logan observed. "I am an executive now. Community outreach director, remember? Is that what you want? Long term, I mean." Anaya was quiet for several blocks. "I want Zoe to grow up seeing her mother as more than someone who survived. I want her to see me as someone who fought back and won." The federal building was a monument to justice. Marble columns, brass fixtures, security checkpoints that treated everyone equally regardless of bank account. Logan had been here before for corporate hearings, but today felt different. Today was personal. James Morrison sat at the defense table, looking smaller than Logan remembered. Federal prosecution had aged him, stress carving lines around his eyes and mouth. When he saw Anaya enter the courtroom, genuine fear flickered across his face. Ms. Williams, Morrison's defense attorney, approached during recess. "My client would like to speak with you privately before his testimony." "No," Logan said immediately. "Yes," Anaya overruled him. "I want to hear what he has to say." They met in a small conference room. Morrison, his lawyer, Anaya, Logan, and federal prosecutor Janet Shun. No relation to David, she'd made clear. Morrison looked across the table at the woman he'd sent to prison, and whatever he saw in her face made him flinch. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I know that doesn't fix anything, but I'm truly sorry for what I did to you." "Why?" Anaya's voice was steady, professional. "I want to understand why you chose me." Morrison rubbed his face, looking older than his 60 years. Meridian Tech needed a scapegoat for their insider trading scandal. They offered Pierce Industries a lucrative contract if we could deliver a conviction that would satisfy federal prosecutors and protect their real criminals. "So you picked this single black mother with no resources to fight back?" "Yes." Morrison's honesty was brutal. "I told myself you'd get probation, community service, that it wasn't that serious. But I knew what a felony conviction would do to your life, and I did it anyway because it benefited my career." Logan watched Anaya process this, saw her hands remain steady even as Morrison confirmed her worst fears about systematic corruption. "The evidence you manufactured," she said. "How much of it was fabricated?" "All of it. Bank records, phone logs, email trails. We created a complete fiction and sold it to a jury who wanted to believe someone was being held accountable. And you never considered that I was innocent?" Morrison looked down at his hands. "I knew you were innocent. That's why I chose you. Guilty people fight back, hire expensive lawyers, create complications. Innocent people often just accept their fate." The room fell silent except for the scratch of the court reporter's pen. Logan felt murderous rage at Morrison's casual admission, but Anaya remained composed, professional, devastating in her calm control. "Mr. Morrison," she said finally, "you destroyed my credit, my reputation, my ability to get decent employment. You made my daughter ask me why mommy was a criminal. You turned 5 years of my life into an apology for something I didn't do. I know, but you know what you didn't destroy? My ability to fight back, my intelligence, my determination to prove that good people can win against corruption." Anaya leaned forward. "You picked me because you thought I was powerless. You were wrong." Morrison nodded miserably. "I was wrong about everything." The formal deposition took 3 hours. Morrison's testimony, recorded and sworn, detailed the entire conspiracy to frame Anaya, the financial incentives behind her prosecution, and the systematic corruption that had made her conviction possible. When it was over, Anaya walked out of the federal building with her record cleared, her reputation restored, and a federal civil rights lawsuit that would make her financially independent for life. "How do you feel?" Logan asked as they stood on the courthouse steps. "Free," she said simply. "For the first time in 5 years, completely free." "What now?" Anaya turned to face him, and Logan saw something new in her expression. Not the guarded survivor he'd met in coveralls. Not the vulnerable woman who'd shared her sandwich with a stranger. This was Anaya Williams unleashed, confident, powerful, dangerous in the best possible way. "Now," she said, "we go back to work. We build something better." She had money, power, and influence for the first time in her life. But the most intoxicating thing was knowing she'd earned every bit of it. 6 months later, Anaya Williams sat in her corner office on the 45th floor of Pierce Industries, reviewing proposals for the company's new community investment fund. Through her floor-to-ceiling windows, Chicago stretched out below like a promise fulfilled. The civil rights settlement had been substantial, $8 million for 5 years of destroyed life. But more important than the money was what it represented. Acknowledgement, validation, justice served at last. "The Detroit expansion is approved," Logan said, entering without knocking. Their relationship had settled into easy intimacy over the months. Professional partners, lovers, co-parents to Zoe, though they still maintained separate apartments and careful boundaries. "Good. Those jobs will help a lot of families." Anaya set down her pen and really looked at Logan. He'd changed too over the past 6 months. Less rigid, more collaborative. Success looked different on him now that he understood what it cost. "Board meeting in 10 minutes, he said, but made no move to leave. Instead, he walked to her desk, picked up a framed photo of Zoe at her science fair, blue ribbon proudly displayed. "She's getting too smart for her own good," Anaya said. "Yesterday, she asked me why we live in a 2-bedroom apartment when you live in a penthouse. What did you tell her?" "That some choices aren't about money." Logan set the photo down carefully. Are they about trust? The question hung between them like it had for months. They'd rebuilt Logan's company together, exposed corporate corruption, cleared Anaya's name, and fallen deeper in love with each shared victory. But the foundation remained complicated, built on lies that had become truth, deception that had revealed authentic connection. What have you had to rebuild trust after betrayal? What did that process teach you about forgiveness and second chances? Tell me in the comments, because sometimes the strongest relationships are forged in the aftermath of broken ones. Logan, I know we agreed to take things slow. I know you need independence. Need to prove you can stand on your own. He moved around the desk, close enough that she could smell his cologne, feel the heat radiating from his body. But I also know that I want to wake up next to you every morning. I want Zoe to have a father figure who'll never leave. I want us to be a family, officially. Anaya's pulse quickened. They'd been dancing around this conversation for weeks, both knowing where they were heading, but afraid to say it out loud. Is this a proposal? She asked. This is me asking if you'd be open to a proposal. Eventually, when you're ready. Before Anaya could answer, her assistant's voice came through the intercom. Ms. Williams? There's someone here to see you. Says it's urgent. We're about to start a board meeting. Ma'am, it's Detective Rodriguez from Chicago PD. He says it's about Marcus Webb. Anaya and Logan exchanged glances. Marcus had been in federal prison for 4 months, serving a 15-year sentence for corporate espionage and conspiracy. What could Chicago PD want with a federal prisoner? Detective Rodriguez was a compact man with tired eyes and the bearing of someone who'd seen too much. He declined their offer to sit, preferring to stand with his back to the window. Marcus Webb was found dead in his cell this morning, he said without preamble. The words hit Anaya like ice water. Dead? How? Up a suicide. Hanging. But there are irregularities. Logan moved closer to Anaya, protective instincts engaging. What kind of irregularities? Webb received a visitor yesterday. Woman named Christine Parker claimed to be his sister. But Marcus Webb doesn't have a sister. No family at all, according to his records. Anaya's mind raced. What did this woman look like? 30s blonde, expensive clothes. Stayed exactly 15 minutes. Left no identification beyond a fake ID that traced back to a dead end. Detective Rodriguez pulled out a notebook. Here's the interesting part. Security cameras show her passing Webb something during the visit. Something small, easy to conceal. You think she gave him the means to kill himself? Logan asked, or with a motivation. See, Webb had been writing letters. Lots of them. To former Pierce Industries employees, to journalists, to federal prosecutors. Looked like he was planning to talk about other crimes, other conspiracies that went beyond what he'd already confessed to. Anaya felt a chill run down her spine. What kind of other crimes? That's what we're trying to figure out. His cell was cleaned out before we could secure all the letters, but we found fragments. References to the Atlanta connection and contracts that go back decades. Ring any bells? The Atlanta connection. Anaya remembered the background story Logan had told her about corporate scandals, about similar crimes in multiple cities. What if Marcus and David hadn't been operating alone? What if Pierce Industries was part of a larger network of corporate corruption? Detective Logan said carefully, "Are you suggesting Marcus was murdered to prevent him from exposing other crimes?" "I'm not suggesting anything. I'm investigating a suspicious death and following leads. But I will say this, dead men don't expose conspiracies. And somebody wanted Marcus Webb very quiet, very permanently." After Detective Rodriguez left, Anaya and Logan sat in silence, processing the implications. The board meeting was forgotten, quarterly reports suddenly meaningless in light of the possibility that their victory had been incomplete. If there's a larger conspiracy, Anaya said finally, if Marcus and David were just part of something bigger, then we're not safe, Logan finished. None of us are. Not you, not Zoe, not anyone who helped expose them. Anaya stood up, pacing to the window where she could see the city sprawling below. Somewhere in those buildings, in corporate offices and law firms and government agencies, other conspirators might be planning their next move. "What do we do?" she asked. Logan joined her at the window, his reflection merging with hers in the glass. We do what we've always done. We fight back. We dig deeper. We refuse to be intimidated, even if it puts Zoe at risk. Especially then, because if we don't stop this, if we let them silence us through fear, Zoe grows up in a world where powerful people can destroy innocent lives without consequences. Anaya leaned into Logan's embrace, drawing strength from his certainty. Outside, Chicago hummed with afternoon traffic and endless possibility. Inside, they held each other and planned their next battle against an enemy they were only beginning to understand. "Logan," she said softly. "Yeah." "Ask me again." "Ask you what?" "If I'd be open to a proposal." He pulled back to look at her face, hope and love warring with concern. "Anaya, ask me, would you be open to marrying me? To building a life together, facing whatever comes next as partners?" She smiled, the expression transforming her face from beautiful to radiant. "Yes, but on one condition." "Name it." "We face this new threat together, as equals. No more protecting me from the truth, no matter how dangerous it gets." Logan kissed her then, deep and desperate and full of promise. "Deal." As they broke apart, both knowing their board meeting had been forgotten in favor of more important plans, Anaya realized she'd found something more valuable than money or justice or cleared names. She'd found a partner worth fighting beside, no matter what battles lay ahead. They thought they'd won the war, but Marcus Webb's death proved they'd only survived the first battle. 2 weeks after Detective Rodriguez's visit, Logan found himself studying security footage at 3 a.m., searching for patterns that might explain why he felt constantly watched. Pierce Industries had doubled their security, hired private investigators, and installed surveillance systems that would make government agencies jealous. But none of it could shake the feeling that they were being hunted. "You need to sleep," Anaya said from the doorway of his home office. She wore one of his shirts and nothing else. Hair tousled from the bed they'd finally started sharing. "Can't. Something's wrong. I can feel it." She moved behind his chair, hands massaging the tension from his shoulders. "What did the private investigators find?" "Christine Parker doesn't exist. The ID she used to visit Marcus was professionally manufactured, but the woman herself vanished completely after leaving the prison." Logan pulled up another screen showing financial records. "But there's more. 3 former Pierce Industries employees have been offered jobs with a company called Meridian Holdings." "Never heard of it." "Neither had I. But guess who owns Meridian Holdings?" Logan clicked to a corporate filing document. Shell companies trace back to the same law firm that defended Morrison 5 years ago. Anaya went very still. "They're recruiting. Not just recruiting, they're building something. A new company using stolen Pierce Industries technology and proprietary information, staffed by people who have reasons to resent us." The implications were staggering. Marcus and David hadn't been working alone. They'd been part of a larger operation designed to strip Pierce Industries of everything valuable, then rebuild it under different ownership. "They're trying to destroy us systematically," Anaya said. "More than that, they're trying to steal our entire business model, our client relationships, our competitive advantages. Everything we've built." Anaya moved to the window, looking out at the Chicago skyline. Even at 3 a.m., the city pulsed with energy, millions of people sleeping peacefully while others plotted in boardrooms and back alleys. What would you do if everything you'd worked for was being stolen by people you trusted? How far would you go to protect your family and your future? Share your thoughts below, because sometimes the biggest enemies are the ones hiding in plain sight. "Logan," she said suddenly, "what if Marcus wasn't going to expose other crimes? What if he was going to expose other victims?" "What do you mean?" "Think about it. I was framed 5 years ago to protect Meridian Tech's real criminals. What if that wasn't the only time? What if there are other innocent people sitting in prison right now, convicted of crimes they didn't commit?" Logan felt pieces clicking into place. A systematic pattern of manufactured prosecutions. Using the same law firm, the same prosecutors, the same methods they used on me. Create fall guys to protect the real criminals, then steal their victims' technology and business connections. We need to find the other victims. They spent the next 3 hours researching corporate crime convictions from the past decade, looking for patterns that matched Anaya's case. What they found was disturbing. 7 other convictions. 7 other small business owners or corporate employees convicted of crimes that benefited larger corporations. 7 other people whose lives have been destroyed to protect more powerful criminals. Maria Santos, Anaya read from her notes. Convicted of embezzling from Rodriguez Construction. The company folded after her conviction, and all their contracts went to Morrison Development. Morrison Development, Logan repeated. Same law firm, same prosecutor, same pattern of manufactured evidence. By dawn, they had a list of victims and a timeline that revealed a decade-long conspiracy to steal businesses, destroy lives, and concentrate wealth among a small group of connected individuals. We have to help them, Anaya said as morning light filled Logan's office. Help who? All of them. Maria Santos, Robert Kim, Jennifer Walsh, everyone on this list. They're sitting in prison or living with criminal records for crimes they didn't commit, while the real criminals have stolen everything they worked for. Logan looked at the woman he loved, seeing the fierce determination that had first attracted him. Anaya Williams had never learned to look away from injustice, even when fighting it put her own safety at risk. That's gonna make us bigger targets, he said. We're already targets. At least this way, we're targets who fight back. Before Logan could respond, his phone rang. Detective Rodriguez, calling at 6:30 in the morning. Never good news. Pierce, we found something. Marcus Webb's letters. The ones that were supposed to be destroyed. Turns out he made copies, hid them in his lawyer's office. What do they say? They're confessions. Not just about your case, but about a network of corporate prosecutions dating back 12 years. Names, dates, methods, financial connections. Everything you'd need to prove a conspiracy. Logan caught Anaya's eye, nodding. Their research had been confirmed. Detective, there's something else you need to know, Logan said. We've identified at least 7 other victims. People who were framed the same way Anaya was, by the same group of conspirators. 7? Jesus, this is bigger than we thought. Much bigger. And someone killed Marcus to prevent him from exposing it. Then you two need to be very careful. If they kill Marcus in federal prison, they won't hesitate to target civilian witnesses. After Rodriguez hung up, Logan and Anaya sat in silence, watching Chicago wake up outside their window. Somewhere in the city, other victims were starting their day, carrying the weight of false convictions. Somewhere else, conspirators were planning their next move to protect their network of stolen wealth. We're going to help them, Anaya said finally. All of them. It's going to be dangerous. Everything worthwhile is dangerous. Logan pulled her into his arms, holding her close. Promise me something. What? Promise me that if this gets too dangerous, if they threaten Zoe again, you'll let me send you somewhere safe. I'll promise you something better, Anaya said, pulling back to meet his eyes. I promise that we'll face whatever comes together. As partners, as equals, as people who refuse to be intimidated by bullies. Logan kissed her, tasting determination and courage and love. Outside, Chicago hummed with morning energy, unaware that 2 people in a downtown office were about to declare war on a conspiracy that had destroyed countless lives. But first, they had a wedding to plan and a future to build. Because sometimes the most revolutionary act is insisting on happiness in the face of those who want to steal it from you. Building a coalition of the wrongfully convicted turned out to be the most dangerous networking Logan had ever done. The conference room at Pierce Industries had never hosted a meeting like this one. Maria Santos, recently released after serving 3 years for embezzlement she didn't commit. Robert Kim, a software engineer whose insider trading conviction had destroyed his family's restaurant business. Jennifer Walsh, whose environmental fraud case had bankrupted her consulting firm. 7 victims of systematic corporate frame-ups, gathering in the boardroom of the company that had inadvertently helped expose their shared enemy. They took everything, Maria said, her voice steady despite obvious pain. My construction company, my house, my daughter's college fund. All to protect Morrison Development's illegal city contracts. Logan watched Anaya facilitate the meeting with natural leadership, making each victim feel heard and validated. This was her idea, bringing together everyone who'd been destroyed by the same conspiracy, building a coalition strong enough to demand justice. The pattern is always the same, Robert added. Small business owner or mid-level employee gets accused of financial crimes. Same law firm prosecutes, same methods, same manufactured evidence. Real criminals walk free while innocent people lose everything. But now we have Marcus Webb's confessions, Anaya said, holding up a folder thick with documents. Written testimony detailing exactly how they selected targets, manufactured evidence, and distributed stolen assets among their network. Jennifer Walsh leaned forward. What's our legal standing? Can we get our convictions overturned? Already in progress, Logan replied. I've hired the best criminal defense attorneys in the country. Every case on this list will be reviewed, and federal prosecutors are opening investigations into prosecutorial misconduct. That's justice, Maria said. But what about revenge? The room went quiet. Logan had been wondering when someone would ask about retaliation against the people who'd stolen their lives. Have you ever wanted justice so badly you could taste it? When someone has wronged you systematically, what's the difference between justice and revenge? Share your thoughts below, because sometimes the line between right and wrong gets blurry when you're fighting for your life. Revenge is what they did to us, Anaya said carefully. Justice is what we're going to do to them. What's the difference? Robert asked bitterly. Revenge destroys innocent people to protect guilty ones. Justice exposes guilty people to protect innocent ones. Anaya stood up, moving to the window that overlooked the city. They turned our desire for success against us, made us into scapegoats for their crimes. If we respond with revenge, we become what they are. Easy for you to say. Jennifer snapped. You got your life back. You're living in a penthouse with a billionaire. Some of us lost families, homes, everything we cared about. Logan saw Anaya flinch, but hold her ground. You're right. I did get lucky. I met someone who had the power to help me fight back. But that doesn't mean I've forgotten what it felt like to be powerless, to watch my daughter ask why mommy was a criminal. Then what are you proposing? Maria asked. Complete exposure. We document everything. Every frame-up, every theft, every connection in their network. We present it to federal prosecutors, to journalists, to anyone who will listen. We make sure they can never do this to anyone else. And financially, Robert pressed. What about compensation for what they stole from us? Logan had been expecting this question. Civil rights lawsuits against every person and organization involved. If we can prove systematic conspiracy, we're looking at damages in the hundreds of millions. Split 7 ways, Jennifer calculated quickly. Split however we decide is fair, Logan corrected. This isn't about money. It's about making sure no one else goes through what you've experienced. The meeting continued for 3 hours, with each victim sharing their story and contributing evidence to the growing case against their persecutors. By the end, they had a comprehensive timeline of corporate conspiracy stretching back over a decade. But they also had a problem. Someone's been watching my apartment, Maria mentioned as they were gathering their papers. Black sedan, tinted windows, same license plate for 3 days running. Mine too, Robert confirmed. And my ex-wife called yesterday, said men in suits had been asking questions about me at her work. Logan felt the familiar chill of being hunted. They know we're organizing, which means they're scared, Anaya pointed out. Scared people make mistakes. Scared people also get desperate, Jennifer warned. And desperate people do desperate things. As the other victims left the building with security escorts, Logan and Anaya remained in the conference room, surrounded by evidence of systematic corruption and the weight of responsibility for 7 destroyed lives. Second thoughts? Logan asked. Never, but I'm thinking about Zoe. If they're watching the others, they're definitely watching us. I've tripled her security detail. Armed guards at school, at home, everywhere she goes. You can't put a 10-year-old in witness protection indefinitely. Logan knew she was right. They needed to end this quickly before their enemies decided that killing witnesses was easier than discrediting them. What if we force their hand? He said suddenly. Ow! Go public. Hold a press conference, announce our findings, make it impossible for them to silence us without creating a media storm. Anaya considered this. Risky, but might work. Hard to kill people who are front-page news. Exactly. We make ourselves too visible to disappear quietly. They spent the next 2 hours crafting a media strategy that would expose the conspiracy while protecting the victims. Press conference scheduled for the following Monday. Major networks invited, federal prosecutors notified in advance. But as they worked, Logan couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Every shadow seemed to hold a thread. Every phone call could bring news of another victim. At 9 p.m., as they were finalizing press releases, Anaya's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Drop the investigation or your daughter pays the price. You have 24 hours. Logan read the message over her shoulder and felt his blood turn to ice. They're escalating. They're scared, Anaya corrected, but her hand shook as she forwarded the text to Detective Rodriguez. Which means we're winning. Not if they heard Zoe. They won't get the chance. Anaya's voice carried deadly certainty. Call your security team. Move Zoe to a safe house tonight. And tomorrow, we hold that press conference exactly as planned. Anaya, no compromises, Logan. They threatened my child. Now they deal with the consequences. As they prepared for the biggest fight of their lives, Logan realized that loving Anaya Williams meant more than just protecting her. It meant trusting her to protect herself and their family with the fierce intelligence and uncompromising courage that had first made him fall in love with her. The war was about to begin in earnest. Standing before 20 cameras and a room full of reporters, Anaya Williams was about to declare war on the most powerful conspiracy in corporate America. Monday morning arrived gray and rainy, Chicago weather matching the tension that had kept Logan and Anaya awake most of the night. Zoe was safe in a secure location with armed guards, but every parent's worst nightmare, your child being used as leverage, had shattered any illusion of safety they'd maintained. You don't have to do this, Logan said for the 10th time as they prepared in the green room behind the press conference stage. Yes, I do. Anaya checked her makeup one final time, then turned to face him. She wore a sharp black suit that commanded respect, her hair pulled back in a style that said serious professional rather than victim seeking sympathy. They threatened Zoe to shut us up. The only way to protect her long-term is to make sure these people can never hurt another family. Logan straightened his tie, nervous energy crackling through him. In 20 years of corporate leadership, he'd never felt stakes this high. This wasn't about quarterly profits or market share. This was about justice, family, and the woman he died to protect. Ladies and gentlemen, the event coordinator announced 5 minutes. Detective Rodriguez appeared in the doorway, badge visible on his belt. Security sweep is complete. FBI is monitoring all entry points. We're as ready as we can be. Any word on the threat assessment? Logan asked. 3 suspicious vehicles were spotted in the area this morning, but they cleared out when our units arrived. Could be coincidence, could be intimidation tactics, or they could be planning something more direct, Anaya said grimly. The press conference room was packed beyond capacity. Major networks, local news, financial journalists, and federal prosecutors filled every seat. Logan recognized faces from CNN, Fox Business, Chicago Tribune, Wall Street Journal. When Anaya Williams and Logan Pierce had something to say about corporate conspiracy, the media listened. Ready? Logan asked, offering Anaya his arm. Ready. They walked onto the stage together, camera flashes exploding like lightning. Logan took his place at the podium, but this was Anaya's moment. Her story, her fight, her chance to speak for every victim who'd been silenced by power and corruption. Was standing up for what's right felt like the scariest thing you've ever done. What gave you the courage to speak out when everyone wanted you to stay quiet? Share your story below, because sometimes one voice can change everything. Thank you for coming, Anaya began, her voice carrying clearly through the room's sound system. My name is Anaya Williams, and 5 years ago, I was falsely convicted of insider trading to protect a corporate conspiracy that has destroyed dozens of innocent lives. The room buzzed with interest. This wasn't the usual corporate scandal. This was personal, emotional, real. Today, I'm here with 6 other victims of systematic prosecutorial misconduct, corporate frame-ups designed to steal businesses and concentrate wealth among a connected network of criminals. Logan watched the journalists lean forward, pens moving across notebooks, cameras zooming in on Anaya's face. She commanded the room with natural authority, transformed from cleaning lady to corporate crusader. We have documentation proving that the same law firm, the same prosecutors, and the same methods were used to convict innocent people while protecting guilty corporations. Maria Santos, Robert Kim, Jennifer Walsh, and 4 others lost everything. Their businesses, their homes, their reputations, so that corrupt executives could steal their success. Questions erupted from the audience. What evidence do you have? Which corporations are involved? How high does this conspiracy go? Anaya raised her hand for silence. We have confessions from Marcus Webb, written before his suspicious death in federal prison. We have financial records showing the transfer of stolen assets. We have testimony from James Morrison, the prosecutor who admitted to manufacturing evidence in my case. She clicked a remote, and the screen behind her filled with documents, bank transfers, corporate filings, admission letters, a paper trail of systematic corruption stretching back over a decade. Meridian Holdings, Morrison Development, Clearwater Legal Services, and 17 other companies have built their success on the ruins of innocent lives. They select targets based on vulnerability, single parents, small business owners, people without resources to fight back. Logan watched the room's energy shift from curiosity to outrage. These weren't abstract corporate crimes. These were personal attacks on the American dream, on the idea that hard work and honesty would be rewarded rather than punished. But the most important thing I want to say today, Anaya continued, is that their system only works when victims stay silent. When we're isolated, ashamed, convinced that we deserve what happened to us. Her voice grew stronger, more passionate. I refuse to be silent. We refuse to be isolated. Today, we're announcing federal civil rights lawsuits against every person and organization involved in this conspiracy. We're demanding justice not just for ourselves, but for every future victim they would have targeted. The questions came fast and urgent. Have you received threats? Why did Marcus Webb die? What's the government's response? Logan stepped forward to field the technical questions, but the reporters kept returning to Anaya. Her story, her courage, her transformation from victim to victor captivated everyone in the room. Ms. Williams called out a reporter from the Chicago Tribune. What would you say to other people who might be victims of similar conspiracies? I'd say don't let them make you feel powerless. Document everything. Trust your instincts. And remember that sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do to corrupt people is refuse to stay quiet. As the press conference ended and reporters rushed to file their stories, Logan felt a mixture of pride and terror. They'd accomplished their goal. The conspiracy was now front-page news, impossible to ignore or cover up. But they'd also painted targets on their backs that would never disappear. That was incredible, Detective Rodriguez said as they prepared to leave through a secure exit. You just declared war on some very powerful people. They declared war on us first, Anaya replied. We're just fighting back. As they walked to their armored car, surrounded by federal agents and private security, Logan realized that the woman beside him had transformed completely from the humble cleaning lady he'd met 9 months ago. Anaya Williams was now a force of nature. Intelligent, fearless, and absolutely committed to justice. She found her power not in wealth or position, but in refusing to be silenced by people who thought they owned the world. Tomorrow, the real battle would begin. But today, they'd won the first victory in a war that would determine whether ordinary people could stand up to extraordinary corruption and win. Logan squeezed Anaya's hand as they drove toward their next challenge, knowing that whatever came next, they'd face it together. She walked into the trap, knowing it was a trap, because sometimes the only way to end a war is to face your enemies on their chosen battlefield. The call came at midnight, 2 days after the press conference had ignited a media firestorm across the country. Anaya recognized the voice immediately. Christine Parker, the mysterious woman who'd visited Marcus Webb before his death. Ms. Williams, I believe we need to talk. I am listening. Not over the phone. Tomorrow night, 9 p.m., the Meridian Building downtown. Come alone, where your daughter disappears permanently. The line went dead. Logan, who'd been listening on speaker, was already reaching for his phone to call the FBI. No, Anaya said, stopping him. Are you insane? This is obviously a trap. Of course it's a trap, but it's also our chance to end this. Anaya paced their hotel room, mind working through possibilities. They're desperate now. The press conference worked, federal investigations are opening, clients are fleeing, their whole network is crumbling. All the more reason not to walk into their hands. Logan, they've been shadows for 10 years. Faceless conspirators hiding behind shell companies and manufactured evidence. Tomorrow night, Christine Parker is going to show herself. That's our chance to get real answers. And get yourself killed in the process. Logan pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly. The past week had aged him visibly. The stress of protecting his family while fighting an invisible enemy, taking its toll. I can't lose you, he said quietly. Not now. Not when we've finally found each other. You won't lose me. But I have to do this. For Zoe, for all the other victims, for everyone they might hurt in the future. They spent the next day planning. FBI surveillance teams, backup security, emergency protocols. But ultimately, they all knew Anaya would be walking into the Meridian Building alone because Christine Parker's people would be watching for any sign of law enforcement. When is protecting the people you love worth risking everything you've built together? How do you choose between safety and justice when both matter equally? Tell me in the comments, because sometimes love means letting someone fight their own battles. Tuesday night arrived clear and cold. Chicago's downtown business district mostly empty except for late workers and security guards. The Meridian Building stood 40 stories tall, glass and steel reflecting city lights like a modern fortress. Anaya entered through the lobby, her footsteps echoing against marble floors. The elevator ride to the 38th floor felt like ascending to her own execution, but she kept her face calm, professional. The conference room was dark, except for city lights streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. Christine Parker sat at the far end of a mahogany table, blonde hair perfect, expensive suit immaculate, looking like any other corporate executive except for the gun resting casually beside her hands. Ms. Williams, thank you for coming. Let's skip the pleasantries. What do you want? I want you to understand what you're really fighting. Christine gestured to a chair across from her. Please sit. This conversation will take a while. Anaya remained standing. I understand perfectly. You're criminals who destroy innocent lives for profit. There's nothing complicated about it, isn't there? Tell me, Ms. Williams, what do you think happens to economic systems when small businesses fail? When innovation stagnates? When resources are wasted on inefficient operations? I think you're about to give me a speech about how your crimes serve some greater good. Christine smiled, the expression cold and calculating. We don't commit crimes. We facilitate natural selection in corporate evolution. Companies that can't protect themselves don't deserve to survive. And the innocent people whose lives you destroy. Acceptable casualties in a larger economic war. America's competitors don't play by your rules of fairness and individual rights. If we don't consolidate resources efficiently, we lose to countries that do. Anaya stared at this woman, trying to understand how someone could rationalize systematic destruction of human lives as patriotic duty. You're insane, she said finally. I am practical. Your press conference has caused significant disruption to our operations, but it's not fatal. We can rebuild, relocate, restructure. What we can't do is allow you to continue inspiring other victims to speak out. So you're going to kill me? We're going to offer you a choice. Christine opened a briefcase and removed a thick contract. $50 million transferred to an offshore account. New identities for you, your daughter, and Logan Pierce. Comfortable lives in a country without extradition treaties. In exchange for silence. Permanent, absolute silence. You disappear, the other victims lose their leader, and the federal investigations lose their star witness. Anaya looked at the contract, at the number of zeros that could buy safety, comfort, and anonymity for her family. It was more money than she'd ever imagined having, enough to guarantee Zoe's future and Logan's safety. And if I refuse, then you die tonight. Logan Pierce dies tomorrow, and your daughter spends the rest of her life in foster care, wondering why mommy abandoned her. The threat hung in the air like poison. Anaya realized this was the moment everything had been building toward. Not just the past 10 months, but the past 5 years of carrying false conviction, of believing she deserved less, of accepting that powerful people couldn't be held accountable. You know what your mistake was? Anaya said, moving closer to the table. Enlighten me. You assumed I wanted to be rich. You assumed safety was more important to me than justice. Anaya placed her hands on the table, leaning forward. But I don't want your money. I want you in prison. Christine's hand moved toward the gun. Then you've chosen death. Have I? The conference room lights blazed on suddenly, revealing FBI agents positioned at every entrance. Christine Parker spun around, gun in hand, but found herself surrounded by a dozen weapons pointed directly at her. Christine Parker, you're under arrest for conspiracy, murder, kidnapping, and violation of federal racketeering statutes, Agent Martinez announced. As handcuffs clicked around Christine's wrists, she stared at Anaya with something approaching respect. You wore a wire. I wore 3 wires. FBI, Chicago PD, and private security. Your entire confession is recorded and admissible in federal court. You took an incredible risk. I took a calculated risk. See, that's what you never understood about your victims. We're not powerless. We're not stupid. We just needed someone to believe we deserved justice. As federal agents led Christine Parker away, Logan appeared in the doorway, relief and pride warring on his face. It's over, he asked. It's over. They held each other in the empty conference room, surrounded by the evidence of their victory. Outside, Chicago hummed with nighttime energy, unaware that a 10-year conspiracy had just been destroyed by a cleaning lady who refused to stay quiet. What now? Logan asked. Now we go home to our daughter and figure out what happily ever after looks like for people like us. As they walked out of the Meridian building together, Anaya realized she'd found something more valuable than money or power or revenge. She'd found the courage to fight for justice, the strength to protect her family, and the love of a man who saw her as an equal partner in every battle. The war was won. The real adventure was just beginning. 2 years later, the Pierce Williams Foundation had helped overturn 43 wrongful convictions and prevented countless others. But their greatest victory was the family they'd built together. The wedding was small, just family, close friends, and the other victims whose cases had inspired a national movement for criminal justice reform. Zoe walked Anaya down the aisle wearing a dress that cost more than most people's cars. But she'd insisted on keeping her old sneakers because fancy shoes are stupid. Logan waited at the altar in a perfectly tailored tuxedo, watching the woman who'd changed everything about his understanding of power, success, and love. Anaya wore her grandmother's dress, altered to fit perfectly, because some things were more valuable than money could buy. Do you, Logan Alexander Pierce, take Anaya Rose Williams to be your wife, to have and a hold, in good times and bad, for richer or poorer, in sickness and health, for as long as you both shall live? Edo. Do you, Anaya Rose Williams, take Logan Alexander Pierce to be your husband, to have and a hold, in good times and bad, for richer or poorer, in sickness and health, for as long as you both shall live? Edo. The kiss was soft, sweet, and witnessed by people who understood that some love stories begin with deception but end with absolute truth. At the reception, held in the community center that had been their first joint project, Logan gave a speech that made strong people cry. 3 years ago, I thought I knew what success looked like. Money, power, control over every variable in my life. Then I met a woman who shared her sandwich with a stranger and taught me that real success is measured in different ways. He found Anaya in the crowd, beautiful in candlelight and surrounded by friends who'd become family. Success is having someone who believes in your worth when you've forgotten it yourself. Success is building something together that neither of you could create alone. Success is knowing that when the world tries to break you, you have someone who will fight beside you rather than for you. Have you found someone who sees your strength before you recognize it yourself? What does real partnership look like when two people choose to build something bigger than either could achieve alone? Share your love story below, because sometimes the best relationships begin with the most unlikely circumstances. As the evening wound down and guests began leaving, Logan found himself on the community center's back porch with Detective Rodriguez, who becomes something between a friend and a protective uncle to their family. Any word on the federal prosecutions? Logan asked. Christine Parker got life without parole. James Morrison's serving 25 years. The other 17 conspirators received sentences ranging from 10 to 40 years. Rodriguez sipped his beer satisfied. Justice served. And the victims? All convictions overturned. Civil settlements totaling over $300 million. Most importantly, the Anaya Williams Act passed Congress last month. Mandatory review of all prosecutions involving corporate crime, independent oversight of prosecutorial conduct. Logan nodded, proud of what they'd accomplished, but knowing the real victory was more personal. Inside, Anaya was dancing with Zoe to music that mixed classical with hip-hop because their family had never fit traditional categories. At 12, Zoe was already showing signs of her mother's fierce intelligence and her adoptive father's business instincts. "Dad," she said, because Logan had legally adopted her 6 months after the engagement. "When I grow up, I want to be like Mom." "What do you mean?" "I want to help people who can't help themselves. But I also want to make enough money so the helpers don't have to worry about stupid stuff like rent." Logan laughed, seeing both parents reflected in their daughter's ambitious compassion. "I think you'll probably surpass both of us." "Obviously," Zoe replied with 12-year-old confidence. "But I'll still let you give me advice sometimes." As the last guest departed and cleanup began, Logan stood with his wife in the space where they'd held their first foundation meeting, surrounded by photos of the lives they'd helped rebuild. "Any regrets?" he asked. "About what?" "About the man in coveralls who lied about everything except how he felt about you." Anaya smiled, the expression transforming her face the same way it had that first night in the executive hallway. "That man taught me that sometimes the most honest thing you can do is admit you've been living a lie." And now we build something real, together. They turned off the lights and locked the community center, walking to Logan's car. Now their car, like everything else they shared. Chicago stretched out around them. Millions of people sleeping safely because good people had refused to let corruption win. In the passenger seat, Anaya reviewed plans for next month's congressional hearing on corporate accountability, while Logan drove through streets where they'd first fallen in love. Some of the buildings were the same, but everything else was different. "Logan," Anaya said as they pulled into their driveway, a house they'd chosen together, big enough for family gatherings, but not so big that they'd lose each other in it. "Yeah. Thank you." "For what?" "For seeing me before I saw myself." Logan turned off the engine and looked at his wife, this incredible woman who'd saved his company, his soul, and his understanding of what mattered in life. "Thank you for teaching me that the most powerful thing you can do is help someone else find their power." They walked into their house hand in hand, past photos of their unconventional courtship and evidence of their partnership in business and love. Upstairs, Zoe was already asleep, homework finished, dreams full of the future she'd build on the foundation her parents had created. Logan and Anaya had learned that some love stories don't follow traditional patterns. Sometimes the CEO falls for the cleaning lady. Sometimes the woman who's been knocked down becomes the one who lifts others up. Sometimes the biggest lies lead to the most honest truths. But always, when two people choose to fight for each other and for justice, they can change more than just their own lives. They can change the world, one person at a time, one battle at a time, one love story at a time. In the end, Logan Pierce and Anaya Williams discovered that the most radical thing you can do in a world built on power and corruption is insist on honesty, partnership, and love. And sometimes that's enough to build a legacy that lasts forever. Thank you for joining Logan and Anaya on their journey from deception to truth, from isolation to partnership, from survival to victory. If this story moved you, inspired you, or made you think differently about power, justice, and love, please share it with someone who needs to hear that ordinary people can achieve extraordinary things when they refuse to accept that corruption always wins. What story would you like to hear next? Drop your suggestions in the comments below, because everyone deserves to see themselves as the hero of their own incredible journey.